Let us look at this. This quote is saying that worry is normal. So first of all, we need to understand and acknowledge that to worry is just a normal process in our lives. Whenever there is something that is uncertain, of course, we worry. Of course, we are afraid. Of course, we are fearful. But research has found something very interesting, and that is how long you worry is deadlier than how many times you worry. Meaning to say, if you're worried today about one event, okay, after a while it's done, it's fine, and then tomorrow you're worried about another thing that's going to happen, it's okay. But if you are worried about the same thing over and over again, and if it is in a long term, it could be for weeks, for months, and even years, it is actually deadlier than worrying about different events at different times. So we have to remember this. If you are stressful about something and it is hindering you and obstructing you and distracting you and causing you to be in distress over and over again, the same thing, it is more detrimental than if you were to be stressed about different things at different times. So yeah, if you have something that you have been holding on for a long time, it will only get heavier. It will only get more difficult to hold this in your mind and in your life. I remember the analogy I read somewhere whereby if you hold a glass and not let it fall, the first few minutes there's no issue because you still have strength to actually hold it, and you can even hold it very steadily. But after a while, the glass gets heavier and it's like you want to put down the glass, and it is more difficult to actually hold the glass. Now, did the glass change? The weight of the glass did not change. Even the content inside is still the same. What changed is how long you have been holding the glass and how much more difficult it is the longer you hold on to it. So this concept and analogy is the same thing about worry and about anxious thoughts and about stress about the future. The longer we hold on to it, the more difficult it becomes. So now let us look at worry and how to actually let it go. So all of us know what is worry, and at some point in our life you've been worried about something, and then it generally looks like this. In this particular research which was done so long ago, it is saying that whenever we worry, usually it's because there's a solution that is not reached. We worry because we do not know what is going to happen and we do not know how to tackle that problem. A solution is not yet reached. The second point is that the same thoughts keep repeating itself in our minds. We are constantly bothered by it. We are constantly thinking about it, and sometimes it causes you not to be able to sleep, not to be able to eat. You don't have appetite because that thing is really clouding your mind all the time. Number 3 is that these thoughts are difficult to stop, especially when they are already there in your mind. So when you have that in your mind already, it plays out one time, and the second time you pick it up again, it plays out the second time. The third time you pick it up, it plays out the third time. It will continue on, and it's very difficult to stop unless you have solved it. Okay? The fourth is that it fills up your mental capacity. So take for example, if your brain is 100%, has 100% capacity, the more you worry, the more it eats up your mental energy. So the more you think about it, the more your mind or your brain will focus and spend its energy on worrying, so much so, it affects the other areas of your life. And you can't function well in the other areas because at this moment, you are very worried at this point of time. Yeah? And people who are depressed and distressed, and even those who think about wanting to kill themselves, suicide ideation, their mind is so full of all these negative thoughts, so full of this distress, so much so that out of 100%, maybe 99% of their mind is already negative. When it comes to that, it's very hard to turn back, but it's not impossible. All right, so it's important that we look at stress now, because once you look at it now, you can solve it, and so that you don't develop into distress and develop into depression. And the worst case of depression is actually committing suicide and dying because you take your life because of depression. Now, it's very important about negative thinking, although I didn't plan to share this in this module, but let me share it with you. Once you start with a negative thought, it actually brings you a spiral, down a spiral, and that spiral will only suck you lower and lower and lower if you continue entertaining that thought. So it's very important that as we understand and realize that we're at this stage where worry starts to set in, where anxiety and fear starts to set in, we need to actually settle it first before it brings you down that spiral. And what positive psychology is actually trying to do is, before you go down that spiral, or if you are going down that spiral, we are helping you to spiral up again, back to normal, and help you to spiral up, to grow from it, to have a positive life out of it. Okay? Now the last point is that when we worry, it is disturbing. It disturbs many areas of your life, and it is intensive. Right? When you worry a lot, you can't sleep, you can't eat. I remember one time when I was so worried that at night I really couldn't sleep. My family is sleeping already, but I was still wide awake. And there are many nights when I'm thinking about the same worry, I cried myself to sleep. I didn't understand what it meant until it really happened to me. I was so worried. You know, how can I sleep? No, what can I do? It's like there's no way out. And I just cried and cried. And I literally understood what crying myself to sleep meant. So you look at this quote that I'm sharing with you right now by Susan Jeffers. She has, I think, put a few quotes, 8 or 10 quotes, and I've just picked out one of them. So this quote says, "Pushing through the fear is less frightening than living with the underlying fear that comes from a feeling of helplessness." Meaning to say, if you are distressed, you are fearful, you are anxious, if you do nothing about it, and slowly you find that you are helpless, helpless meaning to say there's no hope. You find that there's no solution. You find that whatever you do will not matter, will not help yourself. And that is when you have developed, or rather you have gone down the negative spiral, remember, into helplessness. You just feel helpless. Now that is most frightening. And it is more frightening than if you were to face that fear, to face that anxiety, to face that worry, and push through it. Because when you push through it, it will be easier than you were to linger until you feel helpless. So I hope that right now, you have a change of mindset. You have a change of mind that whenever you fear, whenever you worry, whenever you perceive something to be stressful, don't sit back and wait until the stress and worry push you down, but rather start now and do something about it. Okay? Now let's look at this slide. Worry, actually, there's one truth and one false statement here. Let's look at the first one. Worry about the future can help us prepare to face the problem. What do you think? By worrying, it can help us to prepare to face a future problem or event that's going to happen. And in organizations, I used to hear that whenever we're planning for something, think about the worst case scenario. Okay? Now, how about in life? Whenever we are unsure about an event, do we think about the worst case scenario? And the worst case scenario usually is, I don't know, maybe dying, maybe death. Right? You cannot recover already, because once you die, you cannot come back to life. And that could be the worst case scenario in life. Now, every time when you think about dying, every time when you think about the worst case scenario, what does it do to us? Does it help you prepare better? Yes, to a certain extent, but more than ever, actually, worry, the second point there, actually increases stress. No, when you think about the worst case scenario, it increases your stress. It increases all this worry, all these distressing thoughts that you cannot focus, And when you are focused so much on your stress, it lowers your cognitive ability, it lowers your mental ability, it lowers your mental energy. So much so that your mental performance is not there. That's why when people are stressed, when people are distressed, when people are anxious and worried, they cannot perform because their mind is so filled up with the worry and anxiety. Okay? So for example, before going on stage to speak to people, I used to get this kind of anxiety. And even right now, I still do. But if I allow the anxiety to capture my mind, to make it the center stage and the focus of my mind, when I go up on stage, I cannot think about anything else. I will forget my speech. I will forget what I was doing there, and I will start to jitter. I wouldn't be able to actually deliver what I planned and not able to go over expectation of what I can share, right? So when I start to worry, stress increases and my mental capacity or performance decreases. So worry, is it good? Yes, it's good, number one, but it is good to prepare, but when you think about the worst case scenarios, be careful because it actually increases stress and lowers our cognitive performance. Of course, except for emergency situations, when you worry and there's an emergency, you worry, escape from that particular situation, yes, please do worry if it is an emergency. But if it is not, there's still time for you to relax, there's still time for you to analyze, there's still time for you to actually work out that worry and help yourself to manage that worry so that once you do, you are able to actually work it out and live it out, however you want your life to be. Okay?